Welcome to Pages to Dialogues, your premier destination for insightful discussions on Christian books. Join me as we delve into the pages of thought-provoking Christian literature and explore the timeless truths and principles that can transform our lives. From classic devotionals to contemporary bestsellers, we'll engage in meaningful dialogues that will inspire, encourage, and challenge you to grow deeper in your faith. So, subscribe to Pages to Dialogues now and join the conversation. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can stay updated on new episodes and exclusive content. Let's turn pages into conversations that matter.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling success strategies.
This one's a bit different.
Yeah, it's about success, but not quite how you might think. It's all about achieving success through, well, faith and those solid biblical principles.
Right. It's fascinating. The author, David Oyedepo, didn't exactly start out thinking, I'm going to be a success guru.
No, not at all.
His path is pretty surprising.
Yeah, he actually wanted a successful business career first. He thought, okay, that's the best way I can support the church. But, well, things changed.
Life had other plans, and those plans led him to become a pastor, eventually founding Living Faith Church worldwide. It's also known as Winners Chapel.
Exactly. But here's where success strategies gets really interesting. Oyedepo doesn't just throw out these vague motivational sayings. He really digs into the Bible, uses stories of those big biblical figures like Noah, Abraham, Job, all of them.
He uses them to show how, well, their crazy strong faith and their wisdom were the real drivers behind their achievements.
He makes a really interesting point about sweatless success.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's kind of the central theme that runs through the whole book. Oyedepo argues that finding your purpose, your divine endowment, as he calls it, is the key to lasting success.
But sweatless success. That goes against pretty much everything we hear these days. You know, all about that hustle and grind.
Yeah.
He even says that sweat itself is like a curse from the fall of man.
Right.
And that true success, real success in the kingdom, should be effortless.
Yeah.
So how does that work? How does that fit with the whole idea that you have to work hard to succeed?
Well, he's making a distinction. There's worldly striving and working in harmony with God's plan. He's not saying we shouldn't work hard. He's saying we should be asking, what am I created for? What's my mission?
That makes sense.
And the idea is that once you discover your purpose, the work you do, it doesn't feel like such a struggle. It's like, well, you're walking a path God designed just for you. He calls this divine backing. When you're aligned with your purpose, you get that supernatural support and things just flow.
So it's not about avoiding hard work. It's about finding the right kind of work, the work that fits your God-given purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He uses examples from the Bible to illustrate this. You know, like Moses.
Okay, yeah.
He was given those very specific instructions, and then he had this supernatural aid to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And Abraham, too, he got that divine guidance and protection as he traveled to a new land. They still faced challenges, but God was with them, supporting them every step of the way.
I love how he uses those old stories to bring these principles to life. And speaking of aligning with God's plan, he lays out these 3 covenant modules. He believes they're super important for success.
Right. They're gifts and habits, nature and efforts, and papers and character.
Okay, yeah.
What's really interesting is that Oyedepo, even with this whole emphasis on faith, he doesn't ignore those practical skills. He talks about how important training is. He highlights this through figures like Abraham, who had trained servants, and David, who surrounded himself with mighty men. These guys were known for their skills and loyalty.
Right. It's like he's saying faith without works is dead. That's in the Bible.
Yeah.
You need both, right? You can have all the faith in the world, but if you don't back it up with action and, well, the right skills, you won't really get anywhere.
Absolutely. And it makes you think. Oyedepo's own experience, shifting from that business focus to ministry, it probably shaped this belief. His life shows that being in tune with God's plan sometimes means changing course, even if it wasn't what you initially expected. But in the end, it leads to a deeper, more meaningful sense of success.
Okay, let's dig into these covenant modules a bit more. Starting with gifts and habits. I think he's saying that everyone has unique talents.
Right.
But you have to develop those good habits.
Right.
Refine those talents. Use them effectively. It's like they say, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Exactly. Raw talent isn't enough. We need discipline, perseverance, commitment to always be getting better. Imagine someone who has natural talent for music, right? But if they don't practice, if they don't build good habits, that talent just sits there unused.
Right? It's like a seed that's never planted. Makes sense. Now, what about nature and efforts?
Oh, this one gets into that whole nature versus nurture debate. It's a tricky one. Our nature, how we are naturally, definitely plays a part in our destiny. But the efforts we make, the choices we make, what we choose to do those, can seriously influence the course of our lives.
So it's like this balance, right? We acknowledge the hand we're dealt, but we also recognize that we have power to make our own choices, to shape our own outcomes.
Right. And then there's papers and character. This one, I think, is one of his most interesting points.
Okay, tell me more about this one. What makes it so interesting?
He says that character is more important than talent and qualifications. He even uses real-world examples. You see intelligent people, highly skilled people, but they miss out on opportunities because of their character. They might be unreliable or dishonest, or maybe they lack integrity.
So it's not just about what you know or what you can do. It's about who you are as a person, your integrity, your dependability, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And he ties this back to those figures in the Bible, like Joseph. His integrity earned him favor, even when he was unfairly imprisoned. His character shone through, even in tough times. It's a good reminder that real success, it needs a strong foundation, a foundation of character. And that leads us to another interesting concept that Oyedepo brings up. It's the idea of right bearing. He says to really succeed, you need to get your bearings right. Almost like, navigating a ship.
Okay, I'm curious. What does that mean, getting your bearings right? It does sound like a navigational term.
It is. He uses this analogy of an aircraft. Even if a plane is just 1 degree off course, it could end up hundreds of miles away from where it's supposed to land. It's the same with our lives, he says. If we're not clear about our direction, if our bearings are off, we might end up wasting so much time and energy, going nowhere.
So how do we find that right bearing? Is he talking about like setting goals, or is this something deeper?
It's definitely about goals, but it goes beyond that. Oyedepo lays out this 3-part bearing system, and he says it's essential for lasting success. The first part is scriptural bearing.
Scriptural bearing. So making sure that our goals, they're aligned with what the Bible teaches, with God's plan for our lives.
Exactly. He reminds us that willpower and good intentions, those aren't enough. We have to acknowledge God's role in our success and really seek his guidance for what we're going after.
It's about letting go of our ego and trusting in something bigger, a plan beyond what we can understand on our own. Okay, so what's the second part of this system?
The second part is visionary bearing. Oyedepo really stresses having a clear, strong vision for your life. He even quotes Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people perish.
I love how he explains that perishes doesn't always mean actual death. It's more like a life where you haven't lived up to your potential. It's about being a visionary who can see beyond their present circumstances, not just a missionary going through the motions.
That's a great point. A missionary might be on a mission, sure. But a visionary, they're pulled forward by a powerful vision, even when things get tough. They can see the end goal. They know the impact they want to make.
So we have scriptural bearing, keeping us in line with God's will, and visionary bearing giving us direction. What's the third element of this navigation system?
This one might surprise you. Oyedepo calls it role model bearing.
Role model bearing. So finding people who have already achieved what you want to achieve and learning from them, like following in their footsteps.
Exactly. He says it's not wrong to find a role model and, in a way, try to walk a similar path. It's about finding those people who embody the qualities you want in your own life and then studying how they got there, what worked for them, what challenges did they face.
I can see some people disagreeing with this. They might say, isn't that just idol worship, trying to copy someone else's life?
That's a valid point, and Oyedepo addresses it. He's not saying to blindly copy someone else's life. It's about understanding those principles, the strategies that helped them succeed, and then you adapt them to your own situation, your own goals.
It's like having a mentor, someone who's already been there, done that. They guide you, help you avoid making the same mistakes they did.
That's it. And he even points to examples in the Bible. Abraham and Sarah. God himself told people to look up to them, to see them as models of faith and obedience. It's about learning from those who have gone before us so we can grow faster and avoid unnecessary detours.
Okay, so to sum up, Oyedepo's 3-part bearing system. It's about aligning yourself with God's will, having that clear vision for your life, and finding those role models who can inspire and guide you.
That's a great summary. And I think this framework, you can use it in any area of your life. It's not just about traditional success. It's about living with purpose, with intentionality.
I think that's important for our listeners to hear. Why should they care about Oyedepo's view on success? What makes it different from all the other self-help stuff out there?
I think what makes his perspective so compelling is this. He challenges us to rethink what success actually means. It's not just about money and status. He wants us to consider the deeper stuff, the stuff that makes a life truly fulfilling, a life that aligns with God's purpose for us, a life marked by integrity, service, a commitment to making a positive difference.
I really like how he makes that distinction between what he calls worldly success and kingdom success.
Yeah.
He's not saying money is bad or possessions, but they're not the ultimate measure of a good life.
For sure. True success, according to Oyedepo, it's about aligning your life with God's plan, using your resources, your talents, your influence to bless others, to advance his kingdom. It's about leaving a legacy, something that lasts beyond your lifetime.
It's about living a life of purpose, having an impact. That's powerful. And he's clear that it takes more than just hard work or even good intentions. It takes a deep understanding of those biblical principles and a willingness to apply them to our lives.
He talks a lot about faith. It's the foundation for everything else. It's how we connect to God's power, how we tap into those resources that he makes available to us.
But he's also clear that faith without works is dead. It's not passive. We have to partner with God, put in the effort, use those gifts he gave us.
Right. And he's very direct about the importance of character. He calls it the covenant block for building a great future. No matter how talented you are, how skilled, how gifted, if you lack character, your success is going to be fleeting, meaningless, really.
He even says that character is more important than qualifications. That's a big statement, especially in today's world where everyone's obsessed with degrees and credentials.
It's a good reminder. Integrity, honesty, humility, a strong work ethic. Those are the things that matter in the long run.
Right.
Those are the qualities that build trust, respect, influence that lasts.
And they attract God's favor. Open doors that no amount of talent or skill can open. He uses that example of Joseph. He was a slave, a prisoner, and yet he rose to become one of the most powerful men in Egypt. Why? Because of his character, his integrity, his faith in God.
That's such a powerful example. It shows how character can overcome anything. It highlights Oyedepo's point. True success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become along the way.
It's about developing a character that reflects Christ's character, using your success to bring glory to God and to help others. And speaking of character development, he talks more about those covenant modules. He says they're like building blocks for a strong character.
He lays out 3 specific modules: gifts and habits, nature and efforts, and papers and character. Each one looks at how we can build those qualities that are essential for lasting success.
Okay, let's unpack those a bit. Gifts and habits seems pretty straightforward. We all have gifts and talents, but we need good habits to refine them and use them effectively. Like that saying, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Exactly. Natural talent without discipline and effort won't get you very far. Think of someone who's naturally good at art. But if they don't practice, don't refine their skills, don't develop those good work habits, that artistic potential is wasted.
Okay, I get that. What about nature and efforts? That one seems a little more complicated.
This one goes back to that nature versus nurture debate. Oyedepo acknowledges that our nature, the way we're wired, it plays a big role in shaping our destiny. But the efforts we make, the choices we make, what we do, those can really impact the course of our lives.
So it's about understanding our strengths and weaknesses, our tendencies, and then putting in the effort to reach our full potential, overcome those limitations.
Yes. It's about taking responsibility for our growth. It's about refusing to blame our circumstances or our genes for our shortcomings. We can choose to shape our own outcomes.
That's empowering. Okay, let's talk about papers and character. This one feels super relevant today when everyone's focused on academic achievements and qualifications.
This one directly challenges our obsession with credentials. Oyedepo makes a bold statement. Character always trumps talent and qualifications. He's saying your degrees and certificates might help you get your foot in the door, but it's your character that determines how far you go, how much of an impact you make.
So it's not enough to just be smart or skilled. You have to be trustworthy, dependable, and operate with integrity.
That's it. And he's not just talking about avoiding big moral failures like being dishonest or breaking the law. It's about building those core qualities, the ones we often overlook: integrity, dependability, humility, a strong work ethic.
Those are the qualities that make you valuable to any team, any organization. Those qualities build trust, respect.
Exactly. And they determine the legacy you leave behind. He points to Joseph in the Bible. His integrity was obvious, even in those incredibly difficult situations.
So these covenant modules, they're all about building that strong inner foundation, a character that can handle the storms of life, a character that will lead to lasting success.
That's a great way to put it. And it's interesting how he connects these modules back to the idea of sweatless success.
Okay, I'm curious about that connection. Building character, working hard, it all sounds like a lot of sweat, both literally and figuratively.
Think of it this way. Imagine someone who has discovered their divine endowment, their purpose. They're excited, they have a vision, but maybe they haven't quite developed all the skills they need yet. Or maybe they're struggling with a bad habit that's holding them back.
So they're putting in the work, the sweat, to improve their gifts and habits. They're working on those skills, refining their character.
Right. And as they do that, things start to feel smoother, less forced, less like an uphill battle.
Like they're getting into sync with their purpose, and that alignment brings a sense of ease, makes things more effective.
And then what happens when they run into challenges, setbacks, maybe even opposition from others? That's where nature and efforts come in. They have to tap into their strengths, work on their weaknesses, and keep going with faith, knowing that God is with them.
That perseverance, that faith-fueled effort, it's what helps them get through tough times. It helps them keep moving forward.
And what about when it seems like opportunities are closed off? They get passed over for a promotion, or their ideas are rejected.
That's when papers and character comes in. It's a reminder that those inner qualities, that integrity and dependability, those matter more than any degree or qualification.
Exactly. And when they align their character with God's principles, that's when they open themselves up to his blessings, his favor. Doors start to open, often in ways they didn't expect.
And that's where the sweatless part comes in. It's not about avoiding effort or challenges. It's about aligning your efforts with God's plan so that things start to flow more naturally, more effortlessly.
It's about tapping into a power that's beyond your own strength. A divine energy that pushes you forward, makes the impossible possible.
That's a powerful concept. It's not about shortcuts or avoiding hard work. It's about a different mindset, a mindset rooted in faith, in purpose, in trusting God's plan.
And that brings us to another key point that Oyedepo makes: planning. Being intentional about how we achieve our goals.
Okay, let's talk strategy. He seems to be saying that even with faith and divine guidance, we still need a plan. We need to be thoughtful about how we're going to reach our goals.
Exactly. He's very clear that God is a planner, a master planner, in fact. And he wants us to be like him. He points to the creation story, how God planned out every detail of the universe before he spoke it into being.
It wasn't random. It was all purposeful.
Right. And Oyedepo says that we should approach our lives, our work, our relationships with that same intentionality.
He's pretty blunt about it. He says, you're either planning or you're playing.
And if you're not planning, you're not serious about success.
He even says that not planning is basically failing. That's a pretty strong statement.
He sees it as a fundamental principle for success, is how you move from where you are to where you want to be.
But he's not just talking about any kind of planning.
No, he's talking about effective planning.
And he lays out 3 key laws for making a plan that will actually get you results.
All right, let's talk about those laws. What's the first one?
The first law is reasoning.
That's where it all starts.
He's saying that we need to use our minds, that God-given ability to think and reason, to analyze our situation, figure out our goals, and then come up with a strategy to achieve them.
He even uses stories from the Bible to show how reasoning leads to effective planning.
Like the story of the early apostles. They realized they couldn't spread the word and also manage all the practical stuff for the growing church. It was just too much.
Right, it was overwhelming.
So they used their reasoning skills to develop a plan. They chose deacons to handle all the administrative work so they could focus on preaching and teaching.
And that was a smart move. It allowed the church to grow and reach more people with the gospel.
Then there's the story of the prodigal son. He was lost. He had nothing left. He was at rock bottom. But he used his ability to reason, and he came up with a plan to go back to his father and ask for forgiveness.
His reasoning led him to change his heart, change his direction, and in the end, he restored his relationship with his father.
So Oyedepo's point is, reasoning isn't just about thinking. It's about using your mind to figure out your situation, your goals. It's about making a plan of action. It's about moving from wishing to doing.
He even warns about something he calls the Bethesda syndrome.
Oh, yeah. That's when you're so focused on your problems, your limitations, that you don't do anything. You just wait for a miracle.
Like that man at the pool of Bethesda. He waited for years for someone to help him get into the healing water. He was stuck. waiting for a miracle, but not taking any action himself.
And Oyedepo is challenging us to break out of that mindset. He's saying that we have the power, with God's help, to change our situations. We just have to use our minds, make a plan.
And he's quick to point out that prayer is not a replacement for planning. You can't just pray for something and then sit back and expect it to magically appear.
He says that praying without planning is like playing a game without knowing the rules. You have to match your actions to your prayers. Take practical steps to achieve what you're praying for.
He uses the example of the early apostles again. They had the Holy Spirit, incredible power to do miracles,
Right.
but they still knew they needed to plan, to be organized. They needed a strategy to do their work. They didn't just rely on the supernatural.
They used their minds, just like God gave them, to come up with strategies. They built structures and systems to support their work, to help them spread the gospel.
So Oyedepo's advocating for balance, faith and works, prayer and planning.
Relying on the supernatural, but also using wisdom and strategic action. It's all connected. You need all of it to achieve real, lasting success.
Okay, so we've talked about reasoning, the first law of effective planning. What's the second?
The second law is information. So we've got the thinking part down, now we need the knowing part.
He's saying we have to be informed about whatever it is we're trying to succeed in.
We need to gather facts, data, knowledge. Those things help us make good decisions. We need a solid plan. It's like do your research, understand the situation, be prepared with the right information.
He talks about his own path into ministry. Before he started his own ministry, he spent time studying other successful ministries. He learned from their experiences, from their strategies.
He was a student. He really wanted to learn.
And he didn't just rely on his own gut feelings. He looked for wisdom from those who had already achieved what he wanted to achieve. He was humble enough to learn from others.
That's a good principle for all of us. Be a lifelong learner. Always look for new information, new ways of thinking, new insights that will help you grow and get better.
And it doesn't have to be just formal education. Read books, go to conferences, listen to podcasts, talk to experts.
Watch those who are successful in your field and learn from what they do. Be curious. Always be learning about your craft. Keep finding ways to improve your skills and knowledge.
Okay, so we've covered reasoning and information. What's the third law?
The third law is separation. He also calls it meditation.
Interesting. So after all that thinking, all that analysis, gathering information, we need to take a step back, reflect. It's like hitting the pause button to really process everything.
He's saying we need quiet time to think, to process all that information, to seek God's guidance for our plans.
It's about getting away from all the noise and distractions, creating space for clarity, for inspiration. In a world that's constantly demanding our attention, that quiet space is so valuable.
He uses the story of Isaac. He went out to meditate, and during that time, he had a huge harvest, 100-fold harvest.
It's a beautiful story. It shows how powerful quiet reflection can be. It can lead to abundance, to breakthroughs, to a deeper connection with God.
Oyedepo suggests that when we create that space, that quiet time, and we seek God's guidance, we open ourselves up to His blessings and His favor. And those things can change our lives.
And he's not just talking about spending hours in prayer or reading the Bible. It's about being intentional, creating space for stillness in our lives.
Whether it's going for a walk, spending time thinking, listening to music, writing in a journal, or even just sitting in silence for a few minutes every day.
It's about disconnecting from our devices, from all those demands, and letting our minds and spirits rest, be renewed.
And that's often where those light bulb moments happen. That's when we figure out our purpose, our direction.
It's where we get the inspiration and guidance we need to make plans that are not only practical, but also aligned with God's will.
Okay, to recap, Oyedepo's 3 laws of effective planning: reasoning, information, and separation, or meditation.
And he believes that when we use these laws in our lives, we can make plans that are not just practical, but also aligned with God's purpose for us.
Plans that will lead to a deeper sense of fulfillment, to lasting success. But he also points out those traps we can fall into, things that can mess up our efforts to plan and actually execute those plans. It's like he's saying, watch out for these things, they can trip you up.
Like a guidebook showing you the dangerous parts of the trail.
Exactly. The first trap he talks about is passing the buck. It's that tendency to blame other people for our problems or when we don't make progress.
It's so much easier to point fingers than to take responsibility. It's easier to complain or make excuses than to do something about it.
And Oyedepo calls us out on that. He reminds us that we won't succeed if we're always looking for someone else to blame or to rescue us.
We have to own our situations, admit when we're wrong, and take action to make the changes we want to see.
It's about becoming the hero of our own story, not the victim.
And that leads to the next trap, the I don't have enough mentality. It's like a mindset of scarcity.
It's that feeling of not having enough time, enough money, enough resources. It can really paralyze you. We get so focused on what we don't have that we miss what we do have.
We end up feeling stuck, like we're defeated before we even start.
And Oyedepo challenges that scarcity mindset. He reminds us that God can do amazing things with what we have, even if it seems small or insignificant to us.
He uses that example of the widow with just a little bit of oil. She was obedient, she had faith, and God multiplied her resources.
And the 5 loaves and 2 fish that Jesus used to feed thousands. God doesn't need a lot to work with.
He just needs us to be willing to give what we have to him, to trust him.
So don't let that feeling of lack hold you back. Start with what you have, where you are, and see what God can do.
Okay, so we've covered passing the buck and the I don't have enough trap. What's the third one Oyedepo warns us about?
This one's about who we hang out with. He calls it purposeless companions.
Yes. The people we spend time with, they make a big difference. Their attitudes, their beliefs, their actions, they can either lift us up or bring us down.
He uses this analogy of being at the airport waiting for your flight. If you're with someone who's not going anywhere, you might miss your flight because you're so caught up in talking to them.
But if you're with someone who's also catching a flight, you're both going to be watching the clock, making sure you don't miss your departure.
He's saying that the people we're around, they can either push us forward or hold us back. They can motivate us or drain our energy.
We have to be careful about who we choose to spend our time with.
He's not saying to ditch your friends or family who might not share your vision or who are going through a hard time.
But it is good to be around people who inspire you, who challenge you to grow, people who support your goals and celebrate your wins.
People who are headed in the same direction. People who will keep you focused and motivated.
Okay, and the last trap he talks about is one that a lot of us struggle with. Lack of value for time. It's really about managing your time well.
It's so easy to get busy and forget that time is the most valuable thing we have. You can't get it back.
He makes a distinction between time investors and time spenders.
Time investors, they use their time wisely. They focus on those activities that will give them a return on their investment of time and energy.
Time spenders, they waste their time. They do things that don't help them reach their goals, that don't contribute to their growth, things that don't really matter. They get distracted, they do busy work.
He wants us to be time investors.
Be strategic about your time. Eliminate those distractions. Delegate tasks if you can. Make the most of every moment. Treat time like the precious resource it is.
He says the days are evil.
He doesn't mean it in a scary way.
Right. He's saying there are so many things trying to get our attention, pulling us away from what's important.
So we have to guard our time, set boundaries, make sure we're investing it in the things that matter most.
So just to go over those 4 traps that Oyedepo says can derail our plans. Passing the buck, having that I don't have enough attitude, hanging out with purposeless companions, and not valuing our time.
And if we can be aware of those traps, avoid them, then we can create those effective plans and actually put them into action. Plans that will lead to a deeper sense of fulfillment, to lasting success. It's about moving from just reacting to life to being proactive and intentional.
Exactly. And that brings us to something that might seem a little out of place in a book about success.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Joy.
Joy. That's a great topic. I can see why it might seem a little surprising.
But Oyedepo makes a good argument. He says that joy, it's not just a result of success, it's actually part of the process.
He even says that joy is not optional in the kingdom.
Right.
It's a force that helps us, empowers us to get over those hurdles, and it attracts God's favor.
He uses the Apostle Paul as an example. Paul went through unimaginable things, hardships, persecution, even imprisonment. But he wrote that we should rejoice in the Lord always.
He understood. Paul knew that true joy, it doesn't depend on your circumstances. It's a choice, an attitude. And it's a powerful weapon against those negative feelings. Discouragement, fear, doubt.
Because when we're full of joy, we're stronger, more creative, we're more likely to receive God's blessings.
And Oyedepo doesn't just talk about joy generally. He dives into the specific benefits of excitement, what he calls a winning attitude.
He says that excitement pushes us to do great things, that it makes us more aware of excellence, that it fuels our creativity and productivity.
He even uses the image of a seed to make his point. No matter how much potential a seed has, it can't grow unless it's planted in the ground.
And that's what commitment and excitement do for us. They plant us in the right environment, where we can grow and reach our full potential.
But he knows it can be tough to stay excited, especially when things are tough, when we face setbacks or disappointments.
So he gives some practical advice on how to cultivate a joyful spirit, even when life throws you a curveball.
Like what? What are some of his suggestions?
First, he says, bury your negative past. Refuse to dress the grave.
He's saying let go of those past hurts, failures, regrets that can weigh you down, prevent you from moving forward.
We have to forgive ourselves, forgive others, let go of that pain,
Yeah.
and look at the present moment with new eyes.
And that leads to his second tip. Make the most of the present.
Be present, be engaged, appreciate what you have, savor those moments, and give your all to the tasks right in front of you.
That's where joy is, in the moment.
When we're fully engaged with life.
Okay, what's the third tip?
Third tip, constantly see a brighter tomorrow ahead.
He's talking about hope, believing that things will get better, that you can achieve your dreams, that God has a good plan for you.
And that hope, that faith in a brighter tomorrow, it fuels our joy and keeps us moving forward, even when things get tough. It's a reminder that our God, he makes all things new.
Okay, what's his last tip for staying excited, for keeping that joy alive?
His last tip, keep celebrating the future you see.
He's telling us to express our joy, share it with others, celebrate our wins, both big and small, and live with gratitude and anticipation for what's coming next.
He even says, if you can see a bright tomorrow, the proof is that you're celebrating it.
So if you want more joy, start celebrating the future you want. Talk about it, visualize it, be grateful for it like it's already here.
Because when you have that kind of faith-filled anticipation, it will increase your joy, it will attract God's favor, and it will make your dreams come true.
So Oyedepo is making a strong case for joy. It's not just a nice bonus, it's essential for lasting success.
He's saying it's part of the formula.
It's the power that helps us overcome obstacles, receive God's favor, and do incredible things. And it's a choice we can make every day.
Okay, so we've talked about joy, but I want to talk about another important thing that Oyedepo emphasizes, focus.
Yes, that laser focus. It helps us zero in on our goals, block out the distractions.
I have a feeling this is where things really start to happen, where we move from planning to achieving.
You got it. He calls focus the taproot of fortune. It's the secret weapon of those high achievers in every field.
And he's serious about it. He says that without focus, you're just a jack of all trades, master of none.
He believes that if we try to do too many things at once, we'll never achieve excellence in any one area. It's about focusing our energy, our time, our talent on what matters most.
He uses a powerful example to show what he means. He reminds us that even Jesus, the Son of God, he had a single focus during his time on earth.
He was laser focused on his mission, on redeeming humanity. His whole life was about that one purpose.
And when he was asked about his purpose, he said, "To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth."
One goal, one purpose. Everything he did was about that.
And because he was so focused, he fulfilled his purpose, he made an eternal impact.
Oyedepo says that we need that same clarity, that same intentionality.
We need to figure out our core purpose, our one thing, and then give it our all.
He's not saying we can't have different interests, different things we want to do. It's about prioritizing. Make sure your main focus is on that thing that will have the biggest impact, the thing that will bring you the most fulfillment.
He uses Paul as an example again. Paul had a lot of talents, a lot of abilities. He was a scholar, a writer, a speaker, a leader. He did it all.
But he made a choice. He focused his energy on spreading the gospel to the Gentiles. That was his mission, his reason for living.
And because of that focus, he became one of the most important people in Christian history. His writings, his teachings, they're still influencing millions all over the world, even today.
It's amazing. Just think about the impact one person can make when they're committed to their purpose, when they have that focus.
It's inspiring.
And that's Oyedepo's message. Focus isn't about limiting yourself. It's about maximizing your impact.
It's about putting your energy and effort into the area where you can make the biggest difference.
And to do that, you have to get rid of distractions.
Distractions are everywhere.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get pulled in a million different directions. You lose sight of what you're trying to accomplish.
He talks about guarding your heart, your mind. Be careful about what you let influence you.
It's about boundaries. Saying no to things that don't fit with your goals. Creating space for the things that really matter.
And that brings us to another key part of focus, perseverance.
Staying focused is hard, especially when things get tough, when you hit those roadblocks.
He uses the example of a marathon runner. You don't just show up and expect to win.
No way.
You have to train, push through the pain, the exhaustion. Keep your eye on that finish line even when it feels impossible.
That's how we have to be with our goals. Stay the course, even when you want to quit, even when you get distracted.
You have to remember why you're doing it. What's that deeper purpose that's pushing you forward?
That's what keeps you going. And this ties into another big idea in success strategies. It's about letting your light shine, being an example of God's goodness.
I love that image. He talks about Christians being the salt of the earth, the light of the world.
Right.
But it's not enough to just have those qualities. You have to show them in your life, in your actions, how you treat others.
Exactly. He's challenging us to really live it out, to show people what it means to follow Jesus. He wants people to see the good we do and be drawn to the source of that light, God.
It's about inspiring others, showing them there's something bigger than themselves.
It's about being a light in the darkness, hope in a world that feels lost.
Right.
And he says this isn't about getting attention for yourself or trying to build yourself up. It's about reflecting Christ's light in everything you do.
And he's clear, this is about more than just being a good person. It's about being a force for change.
He reminds us we're supposed to reign on the earth. We're not just here to exist.
We're here to make a difference, use our influence, our gifts, everything we have to make things better. Leave the world better than we found it.
I love how he talks about being a priest and a king in Christ. It's powerful. They're not meant to live boring, average lives. We're called to a life of purpose, influence, impact.
We're supposed to be agents of change in our families, our communities, the world.
And he wants us to step into that calling boldly, confidently, no fear.
He says we shouldn't be surprised when God does amazing things through us. When we're aligned with his will, when we're obedient, we're connected to that supernatural power. And that power can do so much more than we can imagine.
It's about working together with God, letting him work through us.
And that's what's so powerful about this idea of seeing yourself at the top. It's not about being arrogant.
Right.
It's about recognizing your potential, the destiny God has for you, and believing that with his help, you can do incredible things.
It's about shifting your perspective.
Yeah.
From what you think is possible to what God knows is possible.
Exactly. And that changes everything. But Oyedepo also reminds us that this journey, this life of faith and success, it's not always easy.
Definitely not. He says there will be challenges, setbacks, opposition.
He even says those things, those obstacles, they might actually be a sign that you're on the right track.
Makes sense.
The enemy doesn't waste his time fighting those who aren't a threat. If you're playing it safe, staying stuck, he's not going to bother with you.
It's when you step into your purpose, when you start making a real difference, that you'll face resistance.
And that's why he talks about having a warrior mentality. Be prepared for those battles. Put on that full armor of God so you can stand strong.
He's not saying be aggressive or mean. It's about being strong in your faith, knowing what you're fighting for, and being totally committed to God's plan.
Know who you are in Christ. Know the authority he's given you. And use it. Overcome those obstacles.
And he gives some really good advice on how to develop that warrior mentality.
He says surround yourself with the right people. People who will support you, encourage you, and hold you accountable.
And stay connected to God through prayer, studying his word, asking for his guidance.
Draw your strength and wisdom from the source of all power, from God, the one who has already overcome everything. So as we wrap up our deep dive into success strategies, I think what really sticks with me is that this is more than just another self-help book. It's about aligning our lives with what the Bible teaches, about tapping into God's power to achieve lasting success, and not just in our careers or our finances, but in every part of our lives.
It's about becoming who God created us to be, about fulfilling our purpose, about making a real difference. It's about living a life that matters, a life that echoes into eternity. And I love how Oyedepo's own story, how he didn't set out to be a pastor, how that all unfolded, just makes you think.
Right. It makes you wonder, are there clues in our own lives, things we're passionate about, things we're good at, that could be hints about the path God has for us?
Maybe those things we see as just hobbies or things we do on the side, they're actually whispers from God nudging us toward our true calling.
Definitely something to think about as you continue on your own journey.
And remember, success, it's not a destination, it's a journey of discovering who you are, of growing and aligning yourself with God's amazing plan for your life.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Pages to Dialogues. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and found valuable insights to apply to your life. If you did, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, Pages to Dialogues, for more thought-provoking dialogues on Christian books. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on this episode. Please leave a comment below, and let's continue the conversation. If you know someone who would benefit from our discussions, please share this episode with them. Your support means the world to us. Finally, if you appreciated this episode, please give us a thumbs up and a like. It helps us reach more people and continue creating content that inspires and uplifts. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to engaging with you on our next episode of Pages to Dialogues.